Greetings, this is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Today's talk is we're located at the supercharger station in a place called National Harbor, and unfortunately I've started a little bit early on my broadcast because we're kind of in the active driveway for cars that are in process of being charged up. So mostly we have Model S's here, as well as one Model X. And what I think I'm going to do is go through my talk, and then we're going to go over and take a look at the vehicles that are now on display. As I shared in my previous discussion, my goal today was to focus on Dave Duff and some of the suggestions that they have there. Hey, Jerry. Some of the sort of key ideas that he presented, and I wanted to review maybe 4 of those that I think are awesome. The first one I wanted to say that I'm shocked, blown away by, is his mention that when you're charging your EV and it's a lithium-ion battery, his best recommendation that I was amazed by was the fact that he encourages people to operate in a tight window somewhere between 20 and 80% of battery life. And what he basically indicated was that if you remain in that range, you basically have unlimited cycles for your battery if it's a lithium ion. And what he also shared was that there's an interesting situation where lithium ion, enough respect, Mr. Jamaica. What he shared was there's an interesting phenomenon going on where all lithium ion batteries behave in the same fashion. Why this is a big deal is that, in particular this week, I've been having a lot of dialogue with folks who own Nissan Leafs. And one of the problems they've been talking about is the fact that they have a Nissan Leaf that they started with 100 miles on. In one case, there's a gentleman who's waiting for his Model 3. His Nissan Leaf in 2012 got 100 miles. It now gets 50 miles between charges. And so that's extremely short. You can't use air conditioning or heat because that wipes out 25% of your battery life. So if you're going to be a Tesla owner, being on top of the little details of battery management are appropriate. I have to admit, I'm keeping my eye out behind me because after I'm finished, I'm going to take a walk around so you guys can see the facility. And basically, I'm trying to figure out if I want to move my car when there are Model S's or other vehicles trying to get into charging bays that I'm using right now to do my presentation. So the next thing I want to cover about Dave Duff was, so number one, please note, I think Dave Duff talk is terrific because he goes into details about battery densities and other attributes of how lithium-ion batteries work and tips that you can use to do a better job of managing the batteries that you have, and the goal being to get into that unlimited life cycle. Another detail point that popped up is that a friend of mine purchased a Model S in 2012 at the same time that someone purchased a Nissan Leaf in 2012. And over the life of his Model S at the lowest end, I believe the S75, he went from, I think, 220 miles of range to about 190 or 195, which is not fantastic, but I want to say that Tesla not only has a great battery with better range, and their batteries have better densities, so it weighs less, but you also have the benefit of people are getting longer life out of their batteries as well. The second thing I wanted to cover, how do you like your Model S, by the way?
It's not mine, it's my sister's. She
Okay.
loves it.
She loves it?
Yeah.
Terrific. Thank you
she
very
loves
much.
it.
One of the owners of the S's that you can maybe see out the back of my window was saying she's here to charge on behalf of her sister, and so it's not hers, but she absolutely loves the car. The next thing I wanted to cover relative to Dave Duff is the mule process. As you'll notice in his talk, he goes through a description of how the mule process works when it comes to first installing the drivetrain as well as the battery inside of a sort of a dummy vehicle, and then driving and testing that until you have the external part of the vehicle that you want to put over, those internal components. So this is the same process that's been used by every vehicle for Tesla. In that process, as you'll notice, he talks about going up into the mountains above the factory and sort of beating up the cars, driving them on very bad roads and allowing those roads to sort of, mess with the battery connections, etc. So you have some realistic conditions with which you can determine sort of what's going on with the car, or in this case, truck. The next thing I found interesting is the fact that even though that show was done, or video was done in 2012, he references a lot of the core processes that are still being maintained by Tesla, even though it's 5 years later. And I really like the talk because most of what he covers in there, Tesla can no longer discuss. Greetings, Sid Ray. Thanks for the comment. Tesla can no longer discuss a lot of things because they're basically in secret mode all the time, because now that they decided to offer all of their patents for free, they have to carefully guard certain secrets to sort of preserve their forward progress and health. The next thing I wanted to cover about Dave Duff is, they're thin-staffed, and the type of responsibility everybody has is pretty severe, but you can see the passion he has about the engineering work he does, and Tesla in particular, and about the difference that the company wants to make for the planet. So in general, I was impressed by the history of Tesla that was given, in particular how important Daimler-Benz was in the ability of the company to stay alive until it was able to start getting and making money, etc. I also wanted to note that, and I'm actually going to do a separate show on this, the whole interaction between Tesla and Toyota, I think, has been mind-blowing. As you all know from the video, the head of Toyota was given a test drive in an early Roadster, and prior to that he announced that Toyota would do nothing when it came to electric cars. After he had a test drive in the Roadster, the head of Toyota informed Elon Musk and company that he would do whatever they wanted in terms of, assisting in their success, if you will. And so part of that was selling the Fremont factory for a song. Another part of it was an investment, and as part of their process, they actually built their RAV4 product that was all electric. And so that product, one of the fastest vehicles they own. But it's interesting now watching Panasonic and Toyota reigniting that relationship with plans to create a new battery that doesn't infringe on the relationship with Tesla, but allows the car, to sort of move forward from here. I want to note, you'll notice behind me that there are non-Teslas pulling into the charging facilities, and that's one of the pet peeves of the owners here, is that you have people that are not charging their vehicles that are taking up charging slots, because anyone is allowed to park in this area, which is a pain in the butt for those who are here to get supercharger facilities and won't be if all the slots are blocked by non-charging vehicles. The next thing I wanted to move over to, and obviously you can see the rest of the Dave Duff, and I look forward to any of the comments you guys may have either on the video now or after we finish discussing this. The next thing I wanted to discuss is just a general discussion of, is Model 3 the best car ever? Now, I've been test driving cars for 30 years, and one of the most amazing parts of the experience is that when you get in a car, let's say it's a $15,000 car, part of the problem you have with the vehicle is when you test drive that car, if you just got out of I'm going to say Rolls Royce, but let's say you got out of an S-Class Mercedes the day before, you can't say that a $15,000 car isn't as good as the S-Class Mercedes, because you're not comparing the vehicles properly. It's unfair to do that comparison. Now, when you look at the Model 3, some of the attributes that you're looking at there, I think maybe make it the best car ever. And the main reason is you get 310 miles of battery, in theory, for about $45,000. Now, why I think this makes it best car ever is that if you have solar panels on your roof and you're dropping that into your power storage, you have a situation where you now have a car you can drive where you generate your own electricity, And all of a sudden, you have a complete system for not relying on anyone to assist you in the process of getting transportation. And I think that's pretty mind-blowing and an important change versus fossil fuels driving what people are up to. So I kind of bring this up because when you look at the experience that people with the Nissan Leafs are having, you have to agree that there are a lot of people suffering with very short battery ranges. I was even introduced this week to another blown away fact was one of the Nissan Leaf owners pointed out is it's nice if you have 83 miles, but if you have to drive to work and you forget something at home, you now have to go back home, get that item, and you may not have enough juice to get to work, and it takes 8 hours to charge that battery. So there are a lot of vehicles that are showing this 100 miles of range, but that 100 miles is a misnomer in terms of what people really need to actually make their vehicles work. And so I'm fascinated. I do think that you could have everything on the Model 3 not work except for the battery, and customers are getting so much value for their dollar that whether it performs well or not, it kind of doesn't matter. The vehicle is still terrific, and it's worth every penny for those who are getting it. Now, I especially want to point that out when you look at people from Europe, because there's a place called Norway, which is the sort of highest density place in the world for Tesla. And because they have to pay $9 in gas, they get special parking locations, no tax on their vehicles, and they don't pay tolls. The numbers suggest that they're able to knock out paying for the entire vehicle in about 2 years. Again, you can see the Model S behind me that's pulling in to charge up. And as you can see, it's a pretty active location because this location in National Harbor is sort of the only inner-city charging spot for Tesla and the superchargers in the area. And, all these Model S's look old enough to be getting free supercharging as part of their ownership. So the final thing I wanted to review was that I wanted to thank all of you for taking time out to view our semi-truck review for the week. Hey, just wanted to shout out here. I'm seeing another comment from my friends in Sweden regarding, would love to see some photos from Swedish ownership. It's admin at Tesla Fan Insight. I'd love to download those and load those up so that people can see, what the ownership is like of electric vehicles, as well as, et cetera, in a place like Norway. I think Norway and Sweden, but obviously you're in Sweden. Thank you for your comments. Now, getting into the semi-truck, it's getting really exciting right now to be a Tesla fan, a Tesla supporter, because now that the truck is officially here and starting to make deliveries, it's exciting to see what's going on. It's exciting to see the truck actually moving. It's exciting to see the truck under heavy duty weight. And so I just think it's terrific because now there are a lot of folks, in particular, I'm going to have to single out Daimler-Benz in this case because Daimler's trucks can only go 124 miles in Class 7, which means a maximum weight, I believe, of 45,000 pounds. And Tesla's going 80,000 pounds worth of freight. And they're climbing mountains, and it's frigid, so there are a lot of issues they're going to be dealing with. I will admit that the next post that I do will focus on some of the key lessons we learned from the movement of the semi-truck this week. Finally, I wanted to note that there's a thing that I'm fascinated by, which is relative to the truck, and that is what I call the $50,000 semi. And the reason is that in Canada, they have a deal going right now where if you're in Ontario and you buy an electric semi, be it BYD or Tesla in this case, they actually have a rebate program for $75,000 a vehicle. So when you're talking about a vehicle being $50,000 to $75,000 versus, $150,000 or $200,000, that buying proposition is completely amazing. And hence, I really see that being as incentive from Ontario's, governing entity to get adoption of the Tesla to occur by more people. And the thing I'm wondering about is, you've noticed that Tesla has made no statements about the number of semis that they've actually sold. And I just think that's kind of fascinating, because at the end of the day, I think the orders are way higher than have been described. And it's sort of hard. I mean, at this point, the documented orders is maybe 1,000 or 1,500 trucks. And by 4 years from now, Elon Musk has indicated that his plan is to produce 100,000 trucks a year. So it's clear that what's implied by that is they have a nice 10, 20,000 trucks on order right now prior to selling, and that we can look forward to them, the real orders being in the high numbers, i.e. 10 to 20,000 on order, and probably within 2 or 3 years they'll be at 100,000, 200,000 on order, based on people being able to drive the truck and follow it around as it does its deliveries currently. Excellent question. Are the batteries lithium-ion? Right now, the suggestion has been made by one of our viewers that there's something called superconducting going on with the Tesla batteries. An example of superconducting is if you rub your hands together and you have carpeting under your feet in the winter, when you touch that door handle, that jolt that you get is from electricity being conducted on a superconductor basis. And so what I believe is that both the speed and the weight of the current battery is a different configuration. And so I think it's somewhat of a mix of lithium ion and something else. And we don't know what that is, but I think we're a few months away from finding out, based on the number of places that are reverse engineering the Model 3s currently. And again, if you guys have questions, happy to answer. Please post. As you know, we're finishing up in about 3 minutes. Please post if you have any other questions or things that you'd like me to cover going forward. So, I would say that Tesla is in kind of a difficult position for the next couple of weeks. They're going to be announcing that they've only been producing about 500 Model 3s a week, between 500 and 1,000, and hopefully at the end of the month we'll be at 1,000 a month, or 1,000 a week, possibly 2,000 a week. But it sort of implies, if you know your position in line, it kind of implies, where you are in terms of length of time before you start getting deliveries of your vehicle. I think that's about all we were planning on covering today based on time, etc. I wanted to thank all of you for the comments you've been sharing on videos posted. Would also like to have any other sort of inputs on things we should cover or questions you might have in the questions beneath this. What I'm going to do to close out is we're in Washington, D.C. area. We're actually in a place called Oxon Hill, Maryland. I'm going to pull off here and do some shaky video for you guys, where we kind of walk around so you can kind of take a look at the charging facility to see what it's like, and then we'll call it a day. So as you can see, we have a number of S's and X that are in the charging bays currently. You actually have to pay for parking. So while the charging is free, you still have to pay for parking. And if you don't, there's a guy running around slapping tickets on everybody as fast as he can. So I just think this is one of the prettiest locations for charge anywhere. And one of the reasons is, as you can see in the distance, the bridge and the water. There's a very high density of really beautiful restaurants here in National Harbor. And I think it's a really cool place that, if you get a chance and you're in the area, I think it's worth hanging out. The only problem is if there are big events going on, regular folks will park in the parking spaces and then you can't charge your car. So anyway, this is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Look forward to any and all comments. Please be respectful. We are a Tesla fan site. We will call them if they do stuff that are bad, but in general, we are supportive of what Tesla's trying to do for the planet and everybody else. Have a great day. Tschüss, German. Macht's gut. Au revoir. Lehitro. Choda Hafez. And speaking of big ice engines, the 500 horsepower plus Cadillac just pulled in. Hope you have a wonderful day, and thank God that spring is arriving. We're getting out of the cold. Have a good day, Jerry, and thanks for the comments. Enough respect. Au revoir, le hitraot, Khoda Hafez.